Previously on Ballz.
Now then, joining us in studio today is Ross van Reenen. For a moment, John said to me last week that you were coming in. I was thinking John van Reenen. I'm going, oh well, you know, the Olympics are on. Well-known field athlete. He was around about your time when he was breaking records in South Africa.
Yeah.
No relation, right?
No, he is.
Is he?
My cousin, yeah.
Is your cousin?
Yeah.
Where's he these days?
He's in Eisner, as far as I know. Yeah.
Neisner.
Yes. Yeah.
We must catch up with him, Johnny.
Can I get his number from you, Ross?
No, which one was it? Was it hammer or javelin?
John Javelin, yeah. He was world record holder.
World record holder for javelin, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. And undoubtedly, had the country situation not been as it was in that time, I'm sure he would have been one of our Olympic gold medalists, because there was no one to touch him at that time. Eh?
Yeah.
He was throwing well over 80 back then. Even.
Yeah, and the shot put, he was also in the top 2-3 in the world. Yeah.
Amazing.
Just to think what that situation cost us as far as achievements. You think about the various sports and stuff. Whoa. All right. Anyway, so you've come through with a book. What are you doing with yourself these days, by the way, Ross? Obviously, you're in business, right?
Yeah, I'm in business. I'm involved with a company called Titani and doing some business with them with insurance and all those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been now? In your day, you basically played rugby, but it was amateur, so you had to work as well.
Yeah.
So did you do this while you were playing rugby as
well?
well?
I studied a lot. So at the time, you know, most of us were students, and other guys played for either defence force or police. But yeah, so you know, I've been in the financial services industry for 30 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, in those days you went to varsity, and I think that's where a lot of our rugby strength came from. The fact that a lot of guys were studying, playing rugby at varsity, and that's where teams like Shimla's, Tuckies, Marties, all their strength came from.
Absolutely. I mean, at one stage when we won the Currie Cup in 1976, 13 of the 15 players came from varsity. We all played for Shimla's.
Yeah. So is that what the book's about then, or does it deal with also like, you know, players and as you say in the back here, 84% of pro rugby players are going to find it difficult to survive financially.
No, Darren, I'll tell you what happened. I was studying for an MBA, for a master's, and I had to write a thesis. And one of the things that I decided to write about, this was just after South Africa, well, the world turned professional around about 1998, and I was quite sort of smitten with the way, you know, rugby changed, and I was very concerned, you know, what's going to happen with players after they played professional rugby. Because when we played, I mean, you know, we worked till about 5 o'clock, and then we rocked up at the rugby field at 5:15, trained till about 7, and on Friday morning we leave and go and play wherever.
Yeah.
And I very quickly saw that these guys are involved literally from 7 o'clock in the morning till whenever they go to bed. So the whole notion of writing or doing a thesis about the career development of professional rugby players, what happens to them after rugby, started then. So I've been researching for 12 years, and over the period I could see how the problem was getting worse and worse.
All right, 84% is a lot, eh?
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
The other 16 all get super sport jobs, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what has come out in the research, and I've done extensive research, and I'm still doing research on this. Is that 4.78% of professional rugby players will be okay.
Ross, try and be more specific.
Okay, 5% will be all right after a period of, let's say, the first 36 months after they've stopped playing rugby. They don't need, you know, to earn another income. Whereas about here we go, 11.25% will find it, you know, they'll be okay for about 18 to around about 30 months. Then they have to start working and get an income, which leaves you with about 84%. You add those two totals, that gives you 16%. And yeah, it's a big problem. And the very, very recent research, I mean, I'm talking like a month ago, that SAPA conducted, came out that 70% of all our players at the moment are not studying at all.
There's no
They're
time.
doing nothing. No. They do nothing. However, if you look at the Wallabies in 2008, 2009, the guys that retired, 76% of those guys retired with a degree. And 84% of them today are in a preferred occupation, a preferred career, and they're very happy what they're doing. Same in New Zealand. New Zealand, 90% studies and 84% will graduate. So the picture is quite bleak in South Africa.
Why is that?
Well, Australia, obviously, when they finish playing, they go back to the cells and they do woodwork or that kind of stuff.
work behind bars.
I mean, it's forced employment. They got no choice. I mean, what else can they do?
Yeah.
Hello, Quade.
Well, I think, and I think our unions should start to put structures in place. We don't have the structures, because also what comes out in the studies is that the players are keen to study. They want to study, but it's rugby, and I believe there's a bit of a dichotomous relationship between the universities and the unions, and we should seriously address this, because the figure's getting worse and worse as we go on.
Yeah.
What is the average rugby player earning, roughly?
Look, I can tell you now, obviously what I can divulge is that probably 75% of professional rugby players earn less than 300,000 a year.
Sure.
Everybody thinks they're earning millions. Yeah, sure, you have got, your top guys who's got Springbok contracts and World Cup players that do earn incredibly well, but it's a very, very small percentage. And it's not as rosy as it looks out there.
And not all of them have sponsored cars and sponsored this and sponsored that. I mean, because everyone that plays rugby wants one, but I mean, obviously there are only so many people that will sponsor vehicles. In fact, we should actually let one of the players know in this area that like Johnny's getting a sponsored car. Maybe we can get that car to them.
No, Darren,
Yeah.
I've got family. I've got a family.
So do they.
I've got a family.
They've also got families, John.
Yes, but I've got Matthew. I take him to school every single
They
morning.
also have kids that need to go to school, and the thing is, you've got time in the morning. They don't.
I've got not much time, Darren. I'm working solidly, and I can't
Take him on the
afford
bike.
to.
Yeah, you got a
No.
perfectly good bike.
I actually once took him
How
on
did
the
you come
bike.
to work today,
I must
John?
in my beautiful Ford. Thank you, my beautiful Ford Everest.
Anyway, no, it's not about you and your stories.
Well, I'm just
It's
telling you,
about
but
rugby players.
not having my car.
I mean, that's a problem. They don't necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean that that money they make is all going to go into the bank as profit. They have expenses in their livelihoods or in their lives that they have to cover. So it's not like you can say, well, rugby players should then invest their money wisely so they've got enough after rugby to look after them. Some of them can.
Yeah.
But those are generally the ones that end up getting, as you said, as I said, jobs in television. The big names normally are the ones that get snapped up to either be the face of some company in marketing or a job in television or something like that. It's I don't want to call them honest players, they're all honest players, but it's your real workhorse guy that plays day in and day out for his province. He earns, as you say, 200,000 to 300,000 maybe a year. Finishes his career, but he's basically had to use that to live because he hasn't got all these other things.
Oh, exactly, and that's my point. And also the reason for the book is that Chris Kuman, who's a very well-known writer, and I sat one day and having coffee, and I said to him, "It really frustrates me is that nobody knows about this problem. I mean, it's no use writing another thesis and it lands up in a university library." So that's when I decided to write the book and choose successful players out there, and get that message, through to the younger players. Because, I mean, go and study something, even if it's a marketing course of 7 months, or entrepreneurial course, or just a basic financial course. At least you've got something,
What is the best, sorry Simon, what is the best kind of line of work for a rugby player? With, obviously, I mean, they don't have a lot of downtime. As you say, they're up early in the morning and they've got to do gym sessions at 7 o'clock. They're in the gym, they have practice, and literally they have like a day off in the week. And particularly with how the Aussies are piling on the schedule now as well, to try and save their asses as far as rugby goes. They don't have a lot of time for themselves or for their families. So what do you think is the best line of work that they should look at, or the best field they should look at, that they'd be able to accommodate studying and also their training schedules and their demands?
Yeah, I think there's many ways to look at that. Obviously, there's online courses available. I worked very closely with the Western Province and Stormers team 2002, 2003 and 2004. And there, guys like Jean studied, David Barry, Eddie Andrews, all these guys. And I think if the structures are in place, it can work, but we just have nothing at the moment.
That's unfair though, because you must remember they get a few weeks sort of when it gets to
I
playoffs
knew
and Super Rugby and Curry
See.
Cup, where they have that time to study, whereas like teams like the Sharks and the Bulls, I mean, they're busy all the way through.
Oh, but Darren, I mean, when the guys tour, I think I mean, all the rugby players are virtually scratch golfers. I must be careful about
They
that.
do play a lot of golf,
But
I
they do
suppose.
play a lot of golf. And I think just put an hour or two away per day, and just study something. I mean, it's going to stand you in very, very good stead one day.
Yeah. I suppose it is that time, but then again, that is their relaxation time. I think
Yeah.
when they do have time off, they don't want to sit there suddenly and book and swatting all the time. So it's a bit of a balance. But so there are, and these are examples in the book. There are examples. John Robbie does not work.
Have you heard his show?
He sits and talks rubbish to people all day.
Hiya, Darren. Hi.
All right, you mentioned some of the names, and I see on the banner they got behind you there. Obviously, you've mentioned some of the rugby players that have, and this is a book of examples of what guys
Yeah.
have done.
I think a very good example is a guy like Gary Tysman, for
Yeah.
example. I mean, Gary, started a very small civils company even before he started rugby. And, I mean, it's a great example. And, he started playing and he got a friend of his involved who managed it for him while at the same time he was earning. And today, Gary runs a 3 billion plus organization in Africa. I mean, he's extremely successful. Tysman Civils, extremely successful. And, I mean, a guy like Ray Maud as well. So, I think while they're playing, they must think about business opportunities. They must, get one or two mates together and say, look, let's try something and, get a good manager in. But at the same time, that you set yourself up, for the day when you retire.
But essentially, they've also kind of got a bit of a head start, because you look at someone like Francois Pienaar or Gary Tysman. I mean, these are very successful captains, and when it translates into business, people like to deal with these guys.
Oh, absolutely, Simon. You're 100% right. I mean, and I think this is the huge advantage that players have got. They're well known. I mean, even doesn't matter where you play. I mean, even if you play for the Pumas. I mean, look at the match the other night when they played the Kings. So the public knows them, and they must capitalize on that. They must somehow be clever about it and do something while they're playing, because I mean, more than 50% of players will they will just retirement will just be upon them suddenly, and more than 78% of these players are not prepared to earn an income if they can't play after the Saturday. So it's a huge problem. And
I'm trying to look for names in here. Sorry, Johnny, I'll get you in a moment. Names in here of players that particularly, I mean, a lot of these players are players that played in the amateur era, so they would have had a chance to study for their particular thing. Look at players that kind of were established in the professional era, because that was the time when a lot of demands were made. Brayton Paulser, I don't know what he's doing in this book, because all he does is play golf.
Oh, well, I mean, I think Brayton has done very well for himself. I mean, he was sponsored by a farmer, to go to school, and and look at him today. He's a very good commentator, by the way.
Yeah, he is very good. No, I love Brayton to bits.
And I think he's done extremely well.
But he's on the golf course 5 days a week.
Well, I don't know about that.
But you see, some of these guys are the face of corporates as well. So, and they do a lot of networking there as well.
Absolutely.
I think Brayton is one of those. Ashwin Williams is another one who's done very well and is growing big time.
Ashwin declined to be interviewed for my book.
Why?
I don't know. He said he wants to write his own book, and he said he doesn't want to be interviewed. So I said, come on, Ashwin, but doesn't want to be interviewed.
What's the book's name? Socks.
So, Ross, the one thing the other thing I know it's kind of unrelated, but a lot of these players do suffer from a bit of depression after they are no longer in the limelight. That's a big issue.
Yeah, it's a major issue. I mean, I was talking to the play development program managers of Australia, for instance. I mean, they've got a psychologist. Here we go. They've got a psychologist for every franchise, for especially those reasons, because when guys suddenly can't play, or they're injured, or and I think they live in a huge fear. Am I going to be selected the next Saturday? What's going to happen with me? And I think the psychological stress on these players are absolutely enormous.
It is massive, and that's one thing you've got to be very careful of as well. If they are playing in a professional era now, and then having to load on heavy study schedule as well. So that's why doing something that's an hour or two a day, maybe 2, 3 or 3 days a week, is key, because that could be an onset of massive depression for them as well, because there's just no recovery time for them whatsoever.
Absolutely. No.
Like Kevin de Klerk, he's did you leave him in the book?
Kevin has done. Look, Kevin's story is an amazing story. I mean, here's a guy who stopped playing rugby, and he had 3 small children, and he didn't have a job. He went for this interview at Genco, and they said to him, look, come back in a month's time. And Kevin walked outside and he thought about this, walked back into the building and
Yes.
said if you can see Mr. Willie later gaan, oom Willie, ek moet hierdie job nou kry. And they gave him the job, you know.
Brilliant.
So at least, you know, he was a good salesman. He could close the job.
Yeah. I'm just looking at you cleverly also some of the players who are listed here. For each chapter you've actually given them their team number, like Nas is number 10 in the book, H.O. de Villiers number 15, so Gary Teichmann number 8.
Well, I tried to, but my editor had other ideas with some of them.
I see there's Ray Mortis 7 chapters away from Nas, and they never met each other. This is very awesome. I look forward to reading this. This is you can find out just how some of these players, both from the amateur era and the pro era, have managed to make it in the corporate world. From Locker Room to Boardroom is the book. It's out right now, Ross?
Yeah, it's out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome
Well, the
stuff.
first run has been sold out. I mean, it's
that's awesome.
been incredibly successful, and
Can you
17
imagine?
days, and now they're doing a reprint, which should be on the shelves, I believe, by Thursday, Friday this week.
All right, and do you have a book with pictures in for Jean-Ray Krier?
No, unfortunately not.
I would not say that if you was
Yeah,
listening.
say that to his face, Dan.
I think Jean-Ray is one of the intelligent guys.
No, you know, he is.
He went to Boardroom.
Definitely.
Of course he is.
Oh,
Also,
don't-
Yanni Duplessis. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
The
yeah.
doctor.
Yeah.
Is he in here?
Who?
Yanni.
No.
Because there's an example of a guy
No,
who
we
actually
hope-
studied medicine.
No, I hope for Locker 2. I hope for Locker 2
All right.
to get more of the younger guys in.
Yeah.
What
That was
is-
just to set the
Because
tone.
Yanni actually studied medicine through an entire
Obviously.
pro.
And he
career.
qualified.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brissot also got his degree 2 years ago.
did he?
Yeah, so it's
So there is, so it can be done.
That can be done.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
Bismarck was trying to get his degree until we phoned him. Remember, we interrupted him
Yes,
during
he
his
actually,
exam.
Johnny made him fail his exam. But he was economics and he completely gedopt. Yeah.
What is? Sorry, I was looking at the list here. What is Harry Viljoen up to these days?
Well, you know, Harry's been incredibly wealthy, and has
Didn't he
done-
own half
has
of
done-
Hermanus?
He still owns probably more than half of Hermanus. And Gary is still involved in Edge, fund management side, and very involved in property still. I think he's a kind of guy who's just not going to just retire. I mean, he will carry on, and you know, it's not about the money anymore.
Yeah.
And Yanni Engelbrecht, he started out with billions and then opened a wine farm.
Yeah, he's in the book.
Now he's just got millions.
Yeah, he's done very well.
He's in the book.
Extremely-
Harry
he's
Viljoen, Kevin de
retired.
Klerk,
He's
Louis
retired
Late.
at Hermanus at the
Yeah.
moment and doing very well. Yeah.
Very interesting. It should be a great read. I'm looking forward to it. From Locker Room to Boardroom, converting rugby talent into business success. And there's Cobus Visser, the big Wissenhof franchise. Obviously, Francois has done big things with various companies.
Yeah.
Monet Duplessis, of course. And H.O. de Villiers on the cover. Ross van Reenen wrote the book. And obviously, he found some success in business himself. Nice to chat to you again, Ross. It's actually
Thank you very much, Darren.
I don't know if we
Thanks,
ever met each
thanks,
other.
thanks,
So
Simon.
sometime in Bloom, I think.
Yeah,
One of our
yes.
boots and all
That's
days.
right.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
we go.
yeah.
Well, it's lovely to see you again, man. And you're looking very well.
Thank you very much.
Very corporate too. So
Good. Okay.
thanks for coming
Thanks
in,
a
Ross
lot.
van Reenen. The book is available at all stores.
We the best on 3. 1, 2, 3. We the best.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays to Fridays live on Ballz.co.za. Ballz.co.za.